So let's talk about some of the martial arts that we practice and why we feel like they're a good choice for you as well. Number one, the martial art I love the most and which Dani has recently started practicing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can you tell the people a little bit about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what it is, and why it's good for self-defense?
So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, from my understanding, is a lot of grappling. It's wrestling in some sort of ways. There's chokeholds. There's a lot of different things that you could actually do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that can play into other things into one. So I've learned how to choke somebody. I've learned how to trip someone. I've learned how to do a safeguard where I'm on top or sideways or underneath. So there's multiple different ways you can defend yourself through this way. A lot of different ways that you can kick someone's ass, basically.
Yes.
And if you guys have seen old UFC, obviously, like the very first rounds of the UFC fights have been won by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and I think if you guys have never seen this, I would go back and watch those early UFC fights. You can go on UFC Fight Pass and watch all the early events because a lot of people, because of movies, they have a very unrealistic idea of how fights are going to go down. They think it's just going to be just like in the movies. They're going to pull out some type of crazy punch or kick and knock their opponent out. Most of the time, it doesn't go down like that. When you see people that are karate black belts or some type of striking black belt in a real fight, what usually happens right away is that within the first 5 seconds, it's already a grappling situation where they're clenching or the person takes them to the ground, and then they're just like a fish out of water. They don't know what to do in a grappling situation or when they're on the ground, and they're very quickly finished. So this will happen to you if you focus only on striking and if you don't know how to grapple. So if you're concerned about self-defense, highly encourage you to start training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, I always notice, for the most part, that they start off by running for the knees and trying to trip you. So...
Exactly. And these type of techniques can be very effective in self-defense situations. You just have to modify them a little bit. So if you can take an opponent to the ground, especially if you can do a really impactful throw, that itself could be really damaging if you're going onto the concrete. And then once you do have them on the ground, it's going to be much easier to strike them at their leisure. And even more so, let's say you're in a situation where this isn't a threat to your life, but let's just say one of your drunk friends comes at you, kind of tries to like wrestle up on you, and you can neutralize somebody like that where it's not a lethal threat without hurting the person.
Yeah.
For example, one technique that my coach showed me, Mikal, Aces Jiu-Jitsu Club, is that he showed me a technique called the ratchet choke. Kind of equivalent to the rear naked choke for you guys that have seen that. Love the ratchet choke. But quicker and even more effective. You can make somebody go to sleep painlessly with this choke within 10 seconds. They wake up and they're going to feel a little groggy, but for the most part, they'll be fine. You don't have to KO them. You don't have to take the risk of breaking your own hand. And you can end the fight without hurting your opponent.
Really? And how, oh yeah, so you did show me that, but that was the first time we trained at the gym with it, right?
Yes, exactly. And that was the one that we did on our own a few times. You can do it standing or you can do it on the ground. Exactly.
I remember because he had me sitting on the ground. He was in front of me. We were basically like, I was basically like Indian style over his legs while I'm behind him and I'm trying to choke him like this. Now, you did show me a point of where you should be having your Adam's apple with the wrist bone?
Yes, exactly. So I want to have my coach Mikal on here. He can show you this a little bit more in detail in the future podcast. But just to show you guys the basics of this, if you could step in the center here. So a traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu rear naked choke, you go around the opponent's neck like this, you grab your own bicep, and then when you feel it, you can start to tap. So I start to squeeze, and then she taps here. So that's effective. That can work. You can see she's coughing a little bit. But wait till you see this.
What is wrong with you? I'm just kidding. I'm used to this. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm very used to this.
Yes. So the difference is, the way that we do it at Aces Jiu-Jitsu Club is if you get a little gable grip here, and you can see here in my head, I'm kind of pushing her head forward. The blade of my forearm is going right in her throat, and I just give her a little squeeze, and she's already feeling that in her throat.
Oh yeah, that shit hurt.
Yes.
It's just not like bad. I'm not injured right now. I'm just saying like, ugh.
Exactly.
My eyes are watering a little bit.
But I just demonstrate that to give you guys an idea of what type of thing you can do with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how you can finish the fight without seriously injuring your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a good demonstration because you got me.
Yes.